Hi, my name is Kelly. Welcome to Flexia Talks. We're here with Kelsey, one of our founding instructors today. She is here filming in the studio. We're filming new classes for the online platform. Thank you, Kelsey, for joining me today.
Of course.
We're going to interview Kelsey for this podcast today, so I'm excited. Let's jump on in. So Kelsey, tell us a little bit about how you first found Pilates.
Gosh, it was a long time ago. I was newly out of grad school and I had just gotten my first real corporate job, and I had moved to Palm Springs. And a friend of mine, Jasmine Sharp, who was a teacher at a Pilates studio in Palm Springs, and I knew no one other than Jasmine. So, and I'd never taken Pilates before, and so I started to take Pilates at the Pilates studio that was there. And this was the first iteration of Legree Studios. So the very, very first generation. So it was still very Pilates based, but it was, that first generation of sort of mega reformers. And I sort of fell in love with it. But I also didn't like how much it was at that point in time when I was in my early 20s. So I decided to get certified, and one thing led to another. And, my desire to just take free Pilates classes has turned into me teaching Pilates full time and owning businesses.
That's amazing. You're so good at it too. That's awesome. How did you decide to, or why, I guess, is this answering this next question about why did you decide to become an instructor? Was it for the free Pilates classes?
It literally was for free Pilates classes.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. Low key, that was the reason why I became an instructor too. Yeah.
Like when it was just one of those things where I was like, I'm a former college athlete. I love working out. I like the idea of making side money.
Yeah.
At the time I had a flexible job where I could, do my observation hours and do practice teaching hours on the side pretty easily. And yeah, I was like, oh, if I can just teach a couple classes during the week on the side for extra cash and then be able to take class at the studio for free, that sounds great to me.
Yeah. How long had you been doing it that way before you realized that you wanted to make a career out of this?
It was actually a pretty quick shift. I think I got certified and honestly very shortly after decided to start teaching full time.
What was it about? What was it about teaching that you were like, this is it. This is what I'm meant to be doing?
I don't think it ever hit. It wasn't like one thing that hit me where it was like, oh, this is what I'm meant to be doing, or this is what I'm meant to do. Although I do feel that now, like people ask me all the time, and I'm like, I don't know what else I would do other than like teaching and owning studios and running a business. I do really love what I do. I think the aha moment for me just with Pilates in general was, and this was after I had gotten certified, but when it really hit me about how amazing just the practice was right after I had gotten certified, and I was taking class from one of my mentors. And I remember finishing the class, and this was during a point in time in my life that was very stressful, and I had a lot going on, and I was not in a good place mentally and at all. And I remember taking class, finishing class, and being like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about anything else except what I was feeling and what I was experiencing in that moment for a whole hour. And this is amazing that my mind wasn't able to wander to all the other places that it wanted to go. But I was so present with my body and, being cued on how to breathe and what to feel and how to move where your mind can't go anywhere else. Was like the moment for me where it really hit me that it was like, oh, okay, I really do love this, and this is what I want to do.
Also plugging in that Kelsey has a moving meditation class on the online studio, and we have had really great feedback on that class. People are loving it.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah, they want to come back to that class over and over again.
Okay, good.
So that's awesome. Who has the biggest influence on how you teach and why?
There's like I would say like, I feel like, and I'm speaking for myself, but I feel like this probably is true for a lot of people, is that like you're probably most influenced by the teachers that you were around when you first started teaching. Mm-hmm. So my friend Jasmine, who I first was like kind of the first person that exposed me to Pilates, I would say was like a big kind of mentor for me. The studio owner, Jen Whitley, who was the first studio that I worked at. She's an amazing teacher and I consider a mentor. And then also Tracy Mallett, huge mentor for me too. I love Tracy personally. I taught for her booty bar training for a few years. And just as like from a Pilates and just general fitness standpoint, Tracy is amazing. And then also I think just other modalities have really influenced my teaching as well. I think when I first started teaching Pilates, I was also taking at the time a lot of yoga. And so the way a lot of vinyasa teachers would create flows was very inspiring for me in the way that I create flows in my classes. And then also I think just from being an athlete and being in that realm has also influenced the way I teach as well.
That's amazing.
So there's lots. There's like a big tapestry of things.
Yeah. So what are you really passionate about in your teaching?
Oh gosh. Right now I feel like that's shifted so much over the years, but I would say right now what inspires me is there's a couple things. I'm going to tell a story really quick that I think is really inspiring. That I think for, just what we do and for Flexia as a company and just generally as a teacher and for me and as a business owner too, I like vividly have this like memory ingrained in my brain of teaching class one morning at my studio. And I had this one client, it was a full class, but just these two reformers next to each other. One client was a woman in her 80s who's a beautiful, tall, elderly woman who still very much so takes care of herself. And then right next to her was a 19-year-old girl, who was daughter of a client of mine, but she would come to class regularly too. And I just remember teaching that class that day and being so inspired by just what we do in general, because Pilates really is for every body, not just everybody, but every body and every age. And when you've taught long enough and you have enough tools under your belt, like I felt totally confident in teaching a comprehensive class that was doable and challenging for both this, woman in her 80s and a girl in her cool. Her almost 20.
Yeah.
So yeah, that inspires me just on a daily basis of being able to teach something that really is effective for all stages and phases of life. And then also I've been doing and exploring a lot in the breathwork realm. So yes. I've been teaching a lot more breathwork. It's very important in my studio and in my business of just when I'm teaching, breath is always part of how we're moving. So I would say right now in this moment, that alignment with breath connection is where I'm really inspired.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is your current teaching routine like?
Like how much am I teaching?
Yeah. And what kind of clients are you working with right now?
Oh, I feel like I have a range. I have a range of clients. And I do feel lucky in my studio in that we really do service like the gamut, yeah. But I would say the majority, the base of our client demographic is 60 and over. So there's, I love teaching a hard class, but also I feel I love being able to teach one-on-one and really work with specific issues or injuries or goals that different folks might have. Luckily, I'm not teaching as much as I used to be teaching. So yeah, I'm doing
until I bring you in here.
Yeah,
and make you teach.
Exactly. Until I come and film and teach 10 classes in a couple days. Yes. But yeah, I'm not teaching a ton. I would say like 15 to 18 hours a week is where I'm at right now, which feels good and almost still like a little bit too much. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Are you doing any other modalities besides Pilates?
And then I also do a form of body work called fascia stretch therapy.
Yes.
Which is on a massage table. But you are still clothed, so you would wear like your regular workout clothes, and we stretch your fascial lines. So I do that, and then also breath work as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a story about teaching or an inspirational client that has really touched you?
Oh, well, I think the story that I told,
I know.
Probably like about the two clients next to each other. Like that is the story that sticks out in my brain the most as far as like inspirational clients. But I mean, I would say too, just in our demographic, you know, we have a woman who's in like 86 and she still comes in twice a week. And again, like that sort of inspiration to me is what makes me continue to want to do what I do. Of like, it's just really amazing to see how this method can so positively affect people's lives and that they can take it with them throughout their whole entire life.
And we're so fortunate as teachers to be able to see that happen to so many people that come through our
Totally.
studio.
Yeah.
That we get to see this modality touch them in such a way that they move with less pain and that they're coming routinely.
Yeah.
Like we see the proof in the pudding all the time.
Totally.
Which I absolutely love.
Another random funny side story that I just thinking about clients and how it's been so beneficial to them. This is an older client I no longer see her. It was from my previous studio, but I do remember her coming in one day and saying she had just talked to her financial advisor about making sure that she had enough money like in her accounts to make sure that she could afford doing Pilates for the rest of her life. She was like, I specifically wanted to like talk to my financial advisor about how much I needed to put away so that I could make sure I still could take classes in my entire life.
Okay,
like,
that doesn't say that it's
amazing.
True. Yeah, she's planning for it. That's awesome. So what is your daily and weekly movement routine like?
Oh, geez. I would love to say that I move daily. That's definitely not the case.
A lot of people think we do. Right?
Yeah, everyone was like, "Oh, so you teach the class? You're like moving while you're teaching?" And I'm like, "No, I'm hovering over people and talking a lot." So no, my own personal movement practice, it varies. I do try to get at least 1 to 2 sessions of Pilates in a week. I also weightlift probably 2 to 3 times a week. And then I will cardio wise, depending on how my back feels. I love to do a Versa Climber class once a week if I'm in a good space and my body's feeling really good. Or I love to hike and actually I also really love to do like urban walks through the really beautiful neighborhoods here in like Piedmont and Berkeley and look at beautiful houses and walk the hills. That's like a fun thing for me to do. Yeah.
Have you incorporated some of that breath work into your weekly routine?
Yes. And so, I mean, that's movement wise. Yes. But on like self-care stuff, I do a lot, but I will do, I have a full like red light panel at home that I sit in front of pretty much daily and to meditate, but then I also incorporate breathwork practice when I do that, when I'm sitting in front of my red light.
Awesome. That's so good. Okay. Have you had any injuries that have set you back and how did you overcome them?
Yes, I've had many injuries. I've kind of found Pilates through an injury. So at the beginning of the podcast, I talked about how, you know, I had moved to Palm Springs for a job and was taking from a friend, but I had blown out my knee my senior year of college playing volleyball. I played volleyball in college. And I was still having a lot of residual stuff from my ACL and meniscus surgery, just like trying to, you know, get better range of motion still of my knee, and the flexion and extension of the knee take a really long time to regain. So Pilates was hugely helpful for that. and that was, you know, how I found it. I've also had another knee injury. I tore my meniscus again.
Same one?
Same knee.
Oh.
Yeah. In 2012, and it was just right after I had opened my first studio.
Oh yeah.
So that was definitely a setback because it was, you know, maybe 6 months after I had opened my first studio, and I was teaching like 10 bar classes a week, and it was a lot. So that was definitely a setback, from like personally and business wise, of just not being able to do as much. And then recently I've been dealing sort of off and on with some back issues, low back issues. And, you know, everyone's like, oh, you're a Pilates teacher, you shouldn't have any back issues, which, you know, general wear and tear on bodies is real. And I've been pretty hard on my body since childhood with playing sports and all the things. So it kind of catches up to you. So yes, there are certain things right now in this moment from the Pilates repertoire that I am not doing so much of, but it also, I think for me in experience in injuries and also overcoming injuries, is it helps you become a little bit more empathetic, I think, also to your clients and just in general of like knowing what it feels like to deal with certain things. But I also think the beauty in experiencing different aspects of life is that like you know how certain things feel, and you can adjust because you have that internal understanding and knowing of what it feels like to deal with X, Y, and Z. But coming back to how great Pilates is, like there's so much that we can do and work around when we do have injuries, that you can still get such a good workout even if you have something happening in your body.
How can you help people or what would you say to someone who's struggling to feel motivated to move their body?
I think, you know, this is such like I feel like outplayed message, but I do really feel like it's so true in that like starting small and building is really, and I think about that in like my meditation practice, for instance, is like, I remember when I first started and like 5 minutes felt like
forever.
Yeah. And I couldn't sit for 5 minutes and it was so hard to do on a regular basis and all the things. And now like 5 minutes feels like nothing to me. And even like sometimes in the morning, I'll only have 10 minutes and I'll sit for 10 minutes and I'm like, but wait,
that wasn't long enough.
That was not long enough. I need more time.
Yeah.
So I do think like really trying to be consistent and start small and slowly build. And also like give yourself some grace. Like it's never going to be perfect. And if you fall off, the only person that's really going to know is you, or that's really going to beat yourself up is you about it. So like just get back up and do it and get back on it.
That's fabulous advice. Outside of Pilates, what do you love to do?
Outside of Pilates, there's a lot of things I love to do. I love to travel.
Yes.
I love to travel.
I love to follow you on social for all your travels, Kelsey travels.
And I love great food. I love great wine. I love great music. And yeah, all the like luxuries of life I'm a huge fan of. And then I also just really enjoy being in nature and being with my family. And, you know, I work really hard, but I also think I play pretty good too. And so having that good balance, but then also being able to really find rest. At the end of the day too, I am like a huge introvert. So I also just really enjoy being at home and being by myself at home and just relaxing too.
And that's okay.
That does not happen very often. So really getting to it within moments that I get to enjoy that is very, really nice.
So I have to ask, because you're a traveler, what is one of the most memorable places that you've ever been?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I mean, I will say probably this most recent big trip that I went on. Yeah, I would say like I went to Iceland with my dad this last year, which was like really cool and really memorable. It was for my 40th birthday. It was just he and I went together, and I shouldn't say I never thought I would ever go to Iceland, but it wasn't high on my list. But when he, reached out to me and was like, do you want to go to Iceland? And I was like, of course I'll go with you.
Who's going to say no?
Yeah, exactly. And so probably the night that we saw the Northern Lights was probably like very high on the like top memories list of my favorite travel experiences because we didn't think we were going to see it. And he and I literally were getting ready to go to bed. And he was like, I'm just going to run outside and see. Because we had this Northern Lights tracker. Yeah. And it said that it was happening. So he was like, okay, I'm going to go outside and just see. Like literally, it's like 10:30 at night. I'm exhausted. It was like our third day there. I'm jet lagged. And I'm like, all right, Dad. Okay. Yeah. So he goes outside and then like literally 3 minutes later calls me and he's like, put on your clothes and come outside. And literally like right as we stepped out of our building, it was happening. Like, and we were like just a few blocks away from the waterfront. So we walked down and a lot of people had gathered by the water. Wow. And it was beautiful. And so that was a really cool experience because it's also something that like just kind of makes you question your existence.
Yeah, I was going to say energetically when you see that.
Yeah, it makes you like, it's like, because it's also moving too. It's not just this like one light in the sky, but it flows and moves in a way that's really magical. So it definitely makes you really question a lot of things. So yes, that's probably the top one.
So amazing. Yeah. That's on my bucket list for sure. What do you love about teaching for Flexia?
I love the challenge, and I also love like, I don't always sit in sequence. Yeah. So the thing that I really enjoy is like, I'll come up with good flows when I'm teaching normally. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to write this down because I want to film this. Yeah. I want to film this. And so it's like, what I do really love about it too, is it challenges me as a teacher because teaching virtually, I don't get to see everyone. So it really, when it comes to cueing, really challenges you. And for me, I think in a really good way of how do I relay this message in a way that is relatable to everyone that's listening and I can't see them. So I can't make any corrections. Yeah. So that's what I think is really cool. And that like, it is a challenge for us to really step up our teaching game. Yeah. Because we don't get to see everybody that's taking with us. So we just hope that whatever we're saying gets across. That's
a good answer. Okay, you ready for your rapid fire?
Oh, geez. Okay.
Let's get ready.
Let me take a sip of water.
Let me see. Let me take a sip of my super hot tea. Okay, here we go. Mermaid or lunge stretch?
Mermaid.
Start a lesson lying down or standing up?
Lying down.
Jump
or can I say seated? I'm going to change it. I think seated.
That was a question.
Sorry, I'm just going to make my own answer.
Jump board or no jump board?
No jump board.
Magic circle or inflatable ball?
Ball. Ball.
It's not the Ring of Fire.
No. Don't need the Ring of Fire.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me. We have more classes to film this weekend, but we want to take a little time to hang out with Kelsey. So thank you for joining us on Flexia Talks, and we'll see you next time.
Yay.